Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Hey, welcome back, everybody. In our digital world, reviews are so important. And many of us have given a review. Sometimes somebody will ask you for a testimonial. Many of us, will sit on that for a while and don't know what to write or how to write it. And it's my belief that pretty much every word counts. If you want to give a favorable review, especially, this all comes down to storytelling. And we've talked about storytelling in many different aspects before, but yes, even in a review, even if it's a couple of sentences, you are telling a story about your interaction with a client or somebody that you did business with. We're going to talk about that today through the eyes of somebody that coaches people all the time with their storytelling. And might I add, there's a story in everything you do in life. It really is when you think about it. And she can help with that and so much more. Michelle Cutler joins us today on the program. How you doing?
I'm good, Steve. How are you this morning?
Very well, very well. And it's so
good.
Funny that we're talking about this today because I have a marketing company and I met with a prospective client. And we've been talking for a while and I've been directing them a little bit here and there. And we got to the point of reviews. And they're a new business. They just opened, I would say, 3 months ago. And it's a restaurant. I'll say that. They had some not so great reviews, which is to be expected. It's a new business. And I looked at them and I said, I've told you guys before, I'm going to say it again. You need to respond to those reviews. You'll diffuse them in a second. You just open. People will understand. You're working on crafting a great experience there at the restaurant. And one of the owners started in his mind replying to what a review said. And he was like a car screeching all over the road. I was like, nope, I'm sorry. Stop. Stop. Do not write that. Do not reply with that. And I can't verbatim think of what it was. But I said, you need to be intentional and you need to think about everything that you write back to them for the best outcome. But somebody in a review, good or bad, is telling a story. Your reply to the review, which you should do no matter what, is a story as well. And I don't think we realize that, Michelle, right?
Yeah, totally. That's an interesting conundrum because you're kind of coming at what I was calling like a testimonial, which I think has a bit more of a positive spin. Asking someone for a review could sort of go in any direction. People, I think, start thinking of ratings, like 5-star ratings. I think a lot of people like to use the review space to either like praise or crush their experience, right? Crush the future of that experience. There are some reviews that'll come in between and actually give some like positive or useful. Doesn't have to be positive, but at least some useful or constructive information. But I like the word testimonial because you wouldn't ask someone who had a bad experience with your services to give a testimonial. You might a public testimonial. You would definitely, if you're good at what you do or you care about what you do and you care about your interactions with your customers or your clients or whatever you want to call them, you would hope that their feedback, critical feedback, would be there to help you to improve. Like you're saying, like have a response. It's a dialogue, especially if it ends up online, right? Like if people are reading this online. So your advice was great for this person, but yeah, they should practice what they're going to say before they put it out there.
and you're right, testimonial. And recently somebody asked me for a testimonial and I work with them. They work with me. I worked with them and we gave testimonials to each other and very honest. And yes, it was positive because it was a wonderful experience. And I'm gratified that they had a good experience as well. But even in the, call it a testimonial review, kind of all the same thing. The reviews that and just to give you the backstory, the restaurant, they opened and there's always going to be growing pains, right? So, some people replied with, the tables were too close. The service was slow. Things like that. There was a lot of great testimonials or reviews, but there was a few of those. And I said to them, just reply with what is going on. Thank you for your review. We appreciate your feedback. We are working to craft the perfect dining experience. Or we just opened and we are working to craft the perfect dining experience. However you want to word it. They were
exactly, yeah.
They didn't know how to word it. I should have said, call Michelle. Call Michelle.
Yeah, you should. You should give a testimonial for me. But the thing is that let's say in that case, and I worked in the restaurant industry for a very long time as a manager, as a bartender, as in the kitchen, even as a host. I've done everything but serve. And that's because I can't carry a tray. So people have, especially now because we see so many of these like food shows, cooking shows, restaurant shows, reality shows where what's his name goes in and like
Gordon Ramsay,
right? Or someone goes in undercover to their own business. I mean, I think the restaurant review can be taken with a bit of a grain of salt, but no pun intended, but ultimately, as with any business, you want to see that the business itself is paying attention to that online conversation, right? That they're saying, as you said, it can be as simple as we've just opened, but at the same time, you don't have to actually give excuses. You could say, so sorry that you had that experience. We're working on a new system of service that keeps the time down to X amount of minutes per person or whatever, things that become actually a promotion of your services. Like you're responding to something with more content that actually promotes what you do. So that let's say I'm a future or potential customer, I might go eat at that restaurant. First off, when I'm reading reviews about a restaurant, more often I want to know about the food, right? Because that's what I'm doing. I'm going there to eat.
Sure.
But yes, the dining experience is super important as well. So if I'm reading these reviews about this restaurant, I'd like to see that the owners care about the experience that people have had, and we can see that in a lot of if we're reading reviews online before we do something, before we buy something, even a book review, right? So much of a review. This is sort of what I was saying about the difference between a review and a testimonial as far as for the business, right? The review is completely subjective. It's like, what if I was in just a bad mood when I went to the restaurant and everything put me in a bad mood? And then I decide to write a review. That's one type of the owner of the business has very little control over that. But you do have a lot of control over a testimonial because you're inviting it. You're saying to someone, you're prompting someone, who may have had a good experience with you. What was it like? What was your greatest challenge before you worked with me, for example? Or how did working with me change the way you do things? Or, I'm making it very generic, but you want to give that person space to really express themselves and then craft that into a testimonial. And oftentimes when you ask people for testimonials and they come back to you, you edit them a little bit for clarity, not to change, the content, but just to make them a bit snappier and more readable. But it definitely helps with your website, driving traffic to your website, or you have it on your Google Business Review. So those are ways. That's storytelling, though, like you're saying.
Why do many of us struggle when somebody asks for a testimonial? Now, put reviews to the side, right? A testimonial. You work with them. Obviously, they're asking you. So the assumption is it's going to be a good one, a good experience as you explain it. But having been asked before, I sometimes struggle with it myself, sitting there thinking because it's a responsibility. You want to make sure that you tell that story, if you will, in the right light, honestly, but clearly, and convey the experience you had. I honestly struggle with it. I don't. Yeah, sure. Let me give you that testimonial. Let me write that down for you real quick. I don't. I sit on it. and I don't know why. Is it the
Yeah,
responsibility? I haven't figured that out yet.
I think having I've been asked as well to write testimonials for different things I've participated in or done, and I try to. I've done. Sometimes I'll do like rehearsals, sort of on a. I've been asked to do video testimonials
Hmm.
as well as written testimonials, and the video ones are always you end up looking at yourself more than thinking about what you're saying half the time. If you're doing,
Mm.
if you're looking at your own phone and recording it, it's hard to sort of just think about what you're trying to say. But it does help, I think, to rehearse things. Um, but at the same time, I think because um, perhaps you feel like it's the responsibility, you want to help, you want to be genuine, right? You want to be truthful um, to your experience in working with that person. And, at a certain point, that can come off as like sales talk, right? And then that doesn't sound authentic. And so, you know, finding a way, usually, to be honest, the easiest thing is exactly what comes to mind first, and then that tends to work. Like the reason I thought of us talking about this is because someone got in touch with me asking sort of for my testimonial of working with you, Steve. And I was like, I love Steve. Like that was the first thing I
No.
said. I love Steve. He's great. I love working with him. And then I thought, how is that useful though for this person, this other business, person who's considering working with you? Just because I love Steve, who am I? So I wanted to give her, some more context to that, and how working with you and how you ask really good questions and how if I come prepared and I give you a topic and something to talk about, you like instantly, tap into that. And then we have these great dialogues, no fluff, no filler, no dead space. And that was much more useful to her than me just saying, I love Steve. He's great.
I'm flattered and thank you. I'm blushing. I am because that. Wow. Um, I love working with you because you're focused and you provide something that I never thought existed to the depth that it does. Look at what we're talking about today. I never even connected storytelling with reviews and testimonials, but it's all there. I mean, and you want to make sure that you, in my opinion, economize your words. You don't want to run off, especially when it's a written testimonial. I find I'm better with video testimonials. I agree with you. I overthink it. How did that look? But I find I tap into something within my mind and the words just genuinely flow. And usually those are longer testimonials. Maybe it could be 20 seconds, 30 seconds, where when I have to write it, I feel pressure that
Hmm.
I come from the school of every word counts. You can edit it, so then edit it. If it's video, it comes a little more naturally, and maybe I don't worry about it as much. I don't know why.
I
Maybe,
think because you're a professional. I think because you're a professional, and because I have seen you before, when we do our Zooms, you look professional. You just are a professional, right? In front of the camera,
thanks.
you're a professional on the mic. I, so I'll share a funny little story with you, but went to got my master's degree in film at NYU, and it's a directing program, an auteur program. So it's directing, writing, camera, everything except for acting. Like we had no acting classes. And I thought, oh,
Hmm.
I should learn how to act. I should learn how to be in front of the camera. Like I had done some theater, but how does it work with the camera? So I took an on-camera course or workshop or something at somewhere in New York in the city, and I was just shouted at all the time because I blink so much. I'm a blinker, okay? And apparently actors, if you watch, you'll now notice in movies, most 90% of the time there's no blinking, unless the blinking is for, a pause or looking off somewhere. I mean, blinking is part of the performance, right? When it happens, but I'm just blink, 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 blink. So I've become very self-conscious for any kind of, in front of camera situation because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm blinking so much already. So for me, writing it, I'm much better at writing a testimonial. Um, if I'm going to do it on video, I tend to have a lot of other things happening, so it just feels natural. Um, but yeah, it's tough, but your business depends on it, doesn't it? Otherwise, you're just presenting yourself. Like, here's me, here's what I do. Isn't that great? And then if you have, like, when I launched my new website last year, my website designer or programmer said, you need to go get some reviews for your Google business review.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh
Yes.
no. Like, I was like, ugh,
Yep.
so testimonials. So I'd only just started sort of officially working in this capacity. I was already doing this work, but under different sort of circumstance, or just under different names, really. Not personal names, but I was a screenwriter. I was helping people. I was a
Sure.
consultant, development, story development, consulting, producing, and so, or even brand for commercials and advertising, right? So I had to go back to people who hadn't actually yet hired me, whether I had worked with them in some capacity, and ask them, hey, could you write a review of me, of working with me, and some way frame it so that you're not lying. Like, you didn't say you hired me, but you have definitely worked with me in a professional capacity. And that was awkward to do, but I was like you, I was blushing. I was so moved actually by the results I got from all these different people I had worked with over
Mm.
years under different circumstances. And that kind of was the launch that kind of helped get me started so that now that my business is working and I'm doing well and I'm getting a lot of organic traffic to my website through my content, through how I interact through workshops. Um, these testimonials are coming from current clients, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's so nice. But at the same time, when you're working with someone currently, you don't want to also say, oh, hey, by the way, can you give me a testimonial? When you're not actually done working yet, even if you have this great moment. Some people will say, capture it in the moment. But I know that when you're working with someone long term, it can really interrupt the trust in a way because you're saying, let's take this great moment we're having together, and can you make it public for me? So there's like a delicate balance.
What's the starting point? So somebody comes to you and they says, hey, can you write me a testimonial? And you're good with it. You want to. You had a great experience. Your mind has so many things swelling. You want to say, and again, I take it as it's a responsibility. You want to really show them in the best light because you had a great experience. Where do you begin?
I think you actually begin with at the beginning, which is how
Hmm.
I found this, how I found this person. I was looking, this is for example in quotations, like I was looking for, um, I was looking for, I can't really give you a fake business, but let's just say we start somewhere where I was looking for something, or I was trying to do this and realized I didn't know what I was doing, or something that gives you like the
Hmm.
before and then the during. So, and then during my work with Steve, I learned how to test my mic better. Like that, right? And then,
which
or
which is
I
true.
learned how,
Full disclosure, which is true.
right, exactly. And, I learned how to answer questions off the cuff, right? And then I could say, and now, so you kind of can have this like three-parter, act one, the origin, where you were, before. Act two is the interaction, the
Hmm.
relationship, the service, whatever. And then act three can be, and now I feel more confident in, or whatever. So now you're not writing, a magnum opus. You're maybe talking about like 3 to 5 sentences, right? But as you said, every word counts. So these sentences, it helps to use language that helps the business. So specific language would be, I need it for me. Let's say I needed help, writing a testimonial, and I felt like my storytelling wasn't really, driving home what I thought. I contacted Michelle Cutler, a storytelling coach, and she helped me, blah, 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 blah. And then now I feel much more confident when I da, 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 da. So it can be as simple as that.
So if I was writing a testimonial for you and I'm just going to roll off the top of my head, I would put it in the context of just what you said. And it would be something like, I had no idea there's a story in everything we do. when I met Michelle, she helped me craft better stories when it comes to resumes, when it comes to reviews, et cetera, et cetera. So I see the progression, act one, act two, and the act three, if it is. And that's the ending. How did it end? And now I'm a better storyteller, something to that effect. So that is very
Or
effective.
now I'm more aware, like you said, like now you're more aware of the stories that in everyday life, if I need to find, I mean, like you and I've spoken before, there is a story in everything. You can find, and as we were talking about with David Lynch, you can find the absurd in the everyday. You don't have to make things up, actually. Truth is stranger than fiction. I tend, that's why people actually love, true crime or documentaries or historical nonfiction. The stories of real people living their lives are infinitely fascinating and enlightening. And in a way, so if we're saying that that's storytelling, nonfiction, right? Storytelling, and then we're taking that even into our transactions, like a testimonial, like writing the about page on our website, like sending out a newsletter to update people on what you've been doing, answering, threads of conversation and social media. Everything that you're putting out there is part of this larger conversation about your business, about who you are as that business.
Am I correct in assuming that every word really does count when you're writing it?
Yeah, absolutely. 100% correct. Look at how concise I was with that answer.
It's just
100% correct, Steve. Yes.
I come from a different area because I did news. I had to write news. That was actually my first full-time big radio job. They threw me in a morning show and they made me the news person. I'm like, wow, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? And I would just study other newscasters and also Associated Press copy where the news came from. And that's really was my school. And then I realized that you're keeping it short, to the point, every word counts, and also write the way you talk. And that's where that began, with every word counts. And then the same thing too, as a DJ, you have 14 seconds over an intro to deliver a message, and you have to identify the station, provide information, show some emotion, and be very positive. 14 seconds, go. It's like, all right.
But that what you just said right there, that little formula right there is the form. It can be your testimonial formula as well. Like exactly what you just said, and thinking about it in terms of a 14-second clip or soundbite, you know, puts the pressure on a little bit to be just more precise, to use language that's more descriptive, or language that expresses more than like, he was great. There's nothing wrong with saying someone was great to work with. I think that's kind of universal. But why? How? How are they great to work with? And by the time you answer the question how they were great to work with, you might just strike out they were great to work with, because instead you'd say Steve was, personable, accessible, supportive, asked great questions. Quote, that's how great he was. But then, of course, I don't need to say you were great because it's implied.
It's implied. Thank you for that. Wow. And that gave so much, those three words, approachable, et cetera. That gave so much depth and detail in understanding what it's like to work with somebody.
Yeah, wow. And especially if they're looking for marketing, like in terms of what you do in your services, if it's marketing, approachability is really important, And the funny thing, I forgot to tell you the rest of the someone asking me to give a testimonial about you. They then said to me that when they launch this product, if I would like to be a beta tester, beta user of the product. And I was like, sure, I'll write a testimonial for you. So here we were, right, sort of in this like triad of testimonializing.
Wow.
Maybe this person will now give some testimonial about working with me, right? So it becomes like this snowball effect. It's good deeds. It's called, like, in the literary world, they call it literary citizenship, right? Where you're reading someone's book for them, not because you're getting paid, but because they need someone to give a review about their book on Amazon to help, build up algorithms. So it's like, hey, can you read my book? Sure, I'll read your book. I'll write a review. And then next time around, hey, can you read mine? It becomes, all of these things are like measures of goodwill in business, in the arts, in entertainment. Not the payola kind, but
Sure.
The kind that's genuine.
I've learned so much from you, and that would be, and I mean that, but that would be part of my testimonial. And I just did before with what you said of what's implied when you use the right words, as opposed to saying, it was great working with him. Well, that's wonderful. What do you mean?
Yeah. Just
be intentional. Think about it. Fascinating. I can't believe I'm just looking at the clock. We're out of time. That just rolled. I mean, I could keep going. It's crazy.
Me too.
Yeah. How do we engage you? And I want to remind once again that not just for testimonials and or reviews, in writing those, storytelling applies to everything we do in life, and right down to even a post on social media. That's a story you're telling there as well. Wouldn't it be fantastic if you worked with a coach who helped you get into the mindset of crafting a better presentation using your words? Words are everything. Even with our technology today, words were big thousands of years ago. They had a thing called the Bible. Words are still, we're doing the same thing. We're using our words, but in just different forms. How do we connect with you?
Yeah, I have a website, as we've been talking about, which is www.michellcutler.com. And I would add to that something I just posted a couple days ago. I actually reposted a blog that someone had written about getting sort of timely, hot stories to publications right now. And I reposted it by saying, instead of ranting about it, write about it. Because this idea, like, you can go online, it's so easy to go online and rant.
Yeah.
And it's way more, and most people will not read it, or they'll engage in the negativity of it. But if you really have something you want to get out there, a personal story that you feel has impact for a much wider audience than just you, then you start writing about it. And that I can definitely help with. I've just started working with a lot of really interesting people on memoir stories, things that they're working on now, that about their life right now that has relevance to things that are going on in the world. It's a careful process that can be so effective. So effective
and so important. And I think we minimize it because we take it for granted. Well, yeah, I talk, I type, I'm good. No, there's a lot more going on there, but it's your choice whether you want to be viewed as somebody that communicates well or just somebody just throwing some words down, and maybe that's okay for you. I like to, like I said, make every word count, and I think that's very important. And that's the story for today.
Cool.
Michelle, wonderful having you on here. So much insight. Love talking with you. And thanks for the testimonial. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
All right. We'll catch up soon, okay?
Yeah.
Be well. We'll be
Bye.
right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Jason Derulo. I love that music connects to people all over the country. But unfortunately, so does something else. Childhood hunger. 15 million kids struggle with hunger right here in America. And yet, every year, billions of pounds of surplus food in the U.S. go to waste instead of going to the children in need. Feeding America is working to change this. The Feeding America nationwide network of food banks rescues this surplus of food to help provide meals to families in virtually every community in the United States, including yours. But they just can't do this alone. Join me in the fight against hunger in America. For more information on what you can do to get involved, visit feedingamerica.org. That's feedingamerica.org. Together we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America. A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.